Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Just VI and I'm back with another video. In today's video, I am going to be wrapping up the May More Money financial series. Super excited about that, where I share my top 5, but I included another book. So it's going to be my top 6 books on finances and financial wholeness, financial education, financial peace, it all. So sharing these books with you guys. If you haven't seen part 1, after this you definitely need to head over there and watch that. In part 1 I covered the only book in the series that I've never read before. So it was my first time reading it, and it was Get Good with Money, and that book was just so phenomenal. It's by Tiffany Aliche. So that book got its own video, its own review, because it's a book that I've never read before. So definitely, if you haven't seen part 1, go check that book out, that video out, that review out. It was just amazing. So yes. So just sharing a little bit of each book, a summary, a little brief summary of them, and then my reading of each book. So yes. So with Get Good with Money by Tiffany Aliche, it was a really good book. She shared getting out of debt, how important it is to be in your finances and know, and just learning. So it was a book about teaching. She taught so much in that book. And like I said, if you watched the first video, I've been on the financial journey for quite some time now, learned a lot, implemented so much, and still learning. So this book was a bit of a refresher for me, which was really good, because in the others I've read before, I learned so much and think so differently due to things I've learned from each book or since then. So it was really cool reading them again now. A little side note, guys, I apologize about the noise in the background. There is construction happening nearby. So sorry about that. Hopefully it's not too disruptive. Yes, so this book was on management, time management, health insurance, liabilities, assets, calculating your network. Everything was in this book. She did a phenomenal job. So definitely go check this book out. I highly recommend, and I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Yes. All right. So moving along. The next book I'm going to be discussing is the book that started it all for me and my husband. The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. This book just was the whirlwind that changed our lives completely. Our thoughts on money, relationship with money, everything. Like, we owe it all to Dave. You know, he is just phenomenal. His lessons, everything, like the baby steps, we implemented those and did those, like started doing and have done them, like are doing them. The good thing about the books that I'm going to share is they all bring something different. And in reading the different books, you realize certain things that you could leave from other books that really don't pertain to you, maybe being where you live or your situation financially, you know, a lot of different reasons. So yeah. So in this book, he shared the 7 steps to the makeover, which are the baby steps. The first one being to save $1,000, pay off all your debt, save 3 to 6 months of expenses for a rainy day in case something happened. That's the emergency fund. And then invest 15% of your household income. As number 5 now, which is save for your children's college fund. And number 6, well, I think it's 7 baby steps. I don't know if I say 6. Pay off your debt, your home early. So pay that off early so you own your home. And then number 7, build wealth and give. I really like that he speaks from a biblical standpoint. I have so much respect for him because he's a Christian and he lives his life exemplifying God and his beliefs and what God practices, or what God teaches us to practice, and what the Bible says. And I take that very seriously because I'm a Christian myself, and I see how it all fits and it should all be one. So I really agree. But of course, there are some things that I do not agree with later after finding more information and learning more. after diving into this way of living, like the debt free and no debt and no credit and all that stuff, depending on where you live, you can't just open a newspaper and find a lender. So some people need to go to the bank. So he preaches as far as like you can lend for your house, debt is bad. It's just a lot of a few of the things that were in here I just didn't agree with, and you should head over to Instagram to check out my full thoughts on it, because I'm not gonna do a full cap of all my my dislikes, because some of it is like you shouldn't teach that way. It's his way, but for me and for some people, it's not for everybody in its totality. Depending on where you live, certain opportunities and things that he preached about in the book, or where you are in life. Because if you're a homeowner and you live someplace where the houses are really high and you saving, yes, but how long until you get in your own house? If you're someone that's waiting to start a family until you have a home, and the houses, a move-in ready house is $400,000. I mean, just saying, you really have to up your earnings, and it just have a lot of parts to play in that. So that was my disagreement. We later learned that debt is a tool, and you should use it as that. That's my bottom line. Otherwise, I believe in cash being king, and you being smart about your money and finances and saving and living below your means. I do believe and agree in that, and those are the foundational pieces. And that's why I think The Total Money Makeover is a book that everybody needs to read at the beginning of their journey. And some people will be all the way in, living, up to their head in debt, and they need to be reading this book to come out. Because you saying using it as a tool, but you have no control over where your money going, the debt that you have to pay. You living a life where you just paying your debt. You cannot enjoy, you cannot go out or do anything, because all your money is going towards your debt, because you just literally just using these cards, or borrowing money. You have no relationship, or your relationship with money is toxic. How about that? So this book, above all else, this is number one. It's just a good book to start out with, because especially if you don't have a good relationship with money, this book is for you. So you follow the steps, and you really you'll see things change. I'm just gonna share one of my likes was how he recommended living God's way, which I said already. 3 principles that he preaches are save, spend, and give. You have to save your money, you spend it, and then you give it to God and just to different charities and stuff like that. So very, 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 very good book. Great book. Amazing book. Yeah, I highly recommend. This book is 5 out of 5 stars for me. Yeah. Even with the disagreements and dislikes of stuff that I've learned differently and think differently about now, even then, because like I said, it's been a few years since I've read them, but we've made changes through learning from the different books. Not necessarily to say I picked this book back up when I was reading the other books, no. So yeah, it was good to go back and to read the stories about the people. That was also probably my favorite part of the book. The stories from the hundreds of people that made these changes in their life and just living such a rewarding life now, like a debt-free life where they own their home, they have a manager with their finances. Because let's be clear, a lot of people do not have a good, are not managing their finances properly. It's not adding up, it's not balancing, it's just all over the place, they're struggling. And if you're living like that, you need this book, because this book is the start. It's the beginning to learn how to do it. So, yeah. So that was The Total Money Makeover by Dave. And now moving along into, that was book 34. Book 35 is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. This book is a game changer. Different from what we were just talking about, but also a game changer. It has so much gems in this book. He's so wise, so smart, so intelligent. It just shared him growing up as a little boy, poor, and seeing the difference between poor and rich, and his poor dad being his biological father and his rich dad being his father that was his best friend's dad, and he was poor also, but worked his way up, and he saw the change and the climb and learned a lot from his rich dad. He learned from his poor dad too also, but it just all connected, and he took the good and left the rest. You know, the saying is, you take the good, you leave the bad. That's true, but you also, sometimes you're not always leaving a bad, but you're just leaving what doesn't pertain to you. So sometimes we speak to people and we get information, we watch videos, we learn, and there's certain things in the video or the conversation that might not have anything to do with us, you know, but there's certain things that do. You take what pertains to you and you leave the rest. That's it. And he really did that. He's a good example of that, and it was just a phenomenal book. I really loved, I read 2 of his books, so I'll be mentioning another one of his also. That was the 6th bonus book that I threw in there. But I love that his quotes were just phenomenal. And one of them from this book was, be careful what you learn, because your mind is so powerful that you become what you put in your head. And you guys, I have to tell you, I'm a reader. I love to read. So with doing this money series, this financial series, it put me back in that space where I was talking this stuff like all the time. Like I was like talking to my friends, talking to my husband about it all the time, because I was like, wow, and reading the different books, because that's where my mind was. It's so important what we pour into ourselves. It's so, so, so important. So that was my favorite quote from the book for sure. I also like that the book was for everybody, for all stages. Everybody could read this book, relate, and, well, not necessarily, you may not be able to relate, but, well, you should be able to relate, because everybody we're either growing up, well, no, I can't say that. It's a good book. Get the book. It's relatable. The different stages that he spoke about with one dad, the poor dad versus his rich dad. So definitely highly recommend this book. Highly recommend this book. It was just so inspirational to see him come from nothing, and it happened, and really happened for him. It's like, wow, you know. I also liked this. I'll leave on this note. We oftentimes say we can't afford this. I can't afford that. He said, instead of saying, he learned this from his rich dad, who always said this. Instead of saying I can't afford this, say, how can I afford this? What asset could you buy that will allow you to afford this? I love that. It's so true. And it's like, wow. When you start thinking, it's basically the saying of looking at a glass half empty versus half full. If it's half full, you are a lot more optimistic than if it's half empty, correct? So, great book. 5 out of 5 stars. Get into this book. Highly, highly recommend. On to The Millionaire Next Door. So this book was a game changer also. I feel like all these books were game changers, especially when I read them before, because I did not know that there were teachers being millionaires. Like just on a teacher salary, living in a middle class life, being a millionaire. We always see millionaires being the fur coats, Louis Vuitton, yachts, just all this lavish luxury life, which is true, which I like about Robert Kiyosaki. Going back a little bit, because he preaches about looking like one too. He want to enjoy his money, but at the same time with Dave, you get a different thing, because he preaches living up below your means and waiting to retire, and working several jobs and doing all this stuff to get there, which is very admirable and respectful. But some people want to retire early. Some people want to go down a different avenue. Some people want to spend their money and live a luxurious life if they're really millionaires. I'm not talking about the people that seem like these millionaires. I mean real millionaires. So back to The Millionaire Next Door. So this book tapped in on the fake and the real. The people that are doing it are spending the money, buying the exotic cars, the driving BMWs, living in really high-priced neighborhoods, and they are literally above their heads in debt because they're doing that to impress their kids' friends, their friends. They live in this neighborhood, so their kids have to go to private schools. It touched on all of that, and the statistics were there. So they came with statistics. This book was all about research. Phenomenal book. The first time I read this book, I was really taken aback, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. it shine a light on something we usually don't get to see or have no knowledge about, because it's always it's always glamorized, that this life, this look of 1 million it really is, versus what some cases of what they really are, because you could be living next to a millionaire and you might not even know it. So that was just cool too. I love this book. Like, I could go on and on and on, as you guys could tell. Phenomenal. I'll share my favorite quote and then I'll read it. So, financially independent people are happier than those in their same income/age cohort who are not financially secure. So basically saying that people that are financially independent feel more secure and living a certain life, versus people the same age, same income bracket, that just living a haphazard life. They don't have no plan. They don't invest. They don't save. They don't do anything. They're just living. So that was my favorite quotes. A lot in this book. A lot is in this book. Definitely get it. It's a must read. I would give this book, well, just 3 stars. I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. All these books are 5 out of 5. Just FYI, phenomenal reads. Like, get into these books. I can't stress it enough. I really enjoyed going back and reading them. Sometimes we read books and we put them down and we learn more information and we read other books, and then we pick those books back up and we're now back in a place of, wow, I need to do this. How can I be more effective in doing this, in making this happen? And that's just the power of what we pour in. We have to pour good and positive things into ourselves to be good and positive. So, yes. Retire Inspired is the next book number 37 by Chris Hogan. This is also a part of the Dave Ramsey camp. So, of course, he preached a lot about being retired and being debt free and all of that jazz, which I do agree to an extent, but I do agree that believe that there is good debt and there's bad debt, and there's smart people and there's dumb people. There's a good relationship with money and there's a toxic relationship with money. That's my beliefs. If you always a negative spectrum of things, then it's not gonna work out for you. But if you're doing what's good and what's right, then you're moving in the right direction and you're doing the right stuff. So just sharing that disclaimer before I start, because it is another phenomenal read, but reading it just put me in another place of, like, I was past certain things. So I was like, wow, like, I don't feel like that anymore. My mindset shifts some. So it was interesting, very inspiring, because who does not want to be retired? It didn't just speak about being retired in 60s, but just choosing when you retire. And we determine when we retire, believe it or not. I know the government gives us an age. A lot of these jobs give us an age, but we determine when we retire. So, yes, it was great. It was great. It was give a push and about how you do it, being smart with your money, investing, making good decisions, and being careful with it too, because that's something. So my phone just cut off for whatever reason. My apologies, but I'm back to finish. So yes, Retire Inspired was a great read. It was a great read. A lot of people need it. People that have just been, I guess, living and not really realizing, like, the certain decisions they needed to be making to retire. And I would suggest Total Money Makeover if you're that person first, and then you could get into Retire Inspired. But yeah, it was just really good. The quotes, with these books, they just had such amazing quotes in them. So in this one, he said, I'll share a couple. Planning is the process where you connect your actions to your goals. Also, execution means taking the right steps at the right time. So true. Commitment means embracing the sacrifices necessary to get you to your dream. And last but not least, fear may be an effective motivator, but it's a terrible master. Don't live in fear, but it pushes us to do certain things. Sometimes it stops us, but it pushes us to do certain things, but it's a terrible master. Don't let it rule you, in other words. So, phenomenal read. once again, a book that everybody could read, can help everyone. Like I say, you take what you can, especially when you believe in living a certain way or what you're doing works for you. But like I said, there's people that need guidance, and these books definitely provide that. So check these books out. Another 5 out of 5 stars from Just Read, okay? Amazing book. Last but not least, book number 38. You guys, I'm almost to 40 books. Like, I'm almost to 40 books. So excited. How to Get Rich Without Cutting Up Your Credit Cards by none other than Robert Kiyosaki. Another phenomenal read from him. I listened to this on Audible. The 2 books I listened to on Audible were Retire Inspired and How to Get Rich Without Cutting Up Your Credit Cards. This book was phenomenal. Well, I love listening to books on Audible, as you guys know, especially when the author reads them. Robert Kiyosaki does not read his own books, but it was good. The good thing with Retire Inspired, Chris Hogan has a beautiful, deep, sultry voice. So listening to him is just amazing. Definitely, you could read the book too. It's not a book that you need to listen to on Audible. I enjoyed Tiffany's book on Audible because, that was another book I listened to on Audible in this series, because she said stories, as well as Chris. He also said stories with his grandmother. She said stories with her upbringing and things that happened for her to learn and be better, and just funny. Some of them were funny, some of them were tough, but I love when an author reads their own book on Audible. So, yeah. All right, so back to how to get rich without cutting up your credit cards, which is funny because on the cover of Total Money Makeover, Dave is cutting a credit card, and that's his belief. You could do it without credit. So that's funny that he titled the book that. I really touched on how you use credit as a tool, and if you're not ready for that, if you up to here in debt and it's bad debt, then you gotta start from the ground up. You gotta go back to the drawing board and learn, and then come back. So I appreciated that, because everybody teaches there's the extremes. There's none and there's all of it. But it was nice to see somebody that was preaching about using it, saying that you need to know what you're doing if you're doing it. So don't get confused, you know what I mean? You gotta know what you're doing if you're doing it. So I really appreciated him saying that, because in all things we need to have balance. He speaks on how the trick to building personal wealth is learning how to transform bad debt into good debt. Once again, there's good and bad in everything. Knowing how to use stuff is very, very important. Quotes. Successful people don't fear failure, but understand that it's necessary to learn and grow from. So he's somebody that failed several times at certain things and went back and did it again and went back and did it again. Now, granted, he's Robert Kiyosaki. He's a millionaire, right? We, in learning about these people that make these amazing decisions in life and are really wealthy, really rich, really famous, we at times don't know the journey or the struggle that it took them, because we've seen the glitz and glamour of them being there. Not when they were struggling to get there, but them being there. That's usually what we are shown. So for me, that quote meant a lot, because to be successful, you have to fail at least one time. They all did. So, well, most, right? The ones, pretty much, I would say, go ahead and say everybody that's successful have one story about a failure, or a story of an investment they made, or they waited too long to take this out, or an opportunity that came to them that they said no to, or just a business that failed. Something. So don't be so scared. Don't let fear be your master that you don't do. Don't that you don't take that step to do something because you're so scared of failing. Don't let fear rule you. So yes, this book was amazing. Like the others, you could cross-reference the quotes and take from this, put it here. All of these books are amazing, and they are near to my heart because they brought us through. We learned so much, dived into each and every one of them, and are excited to implement certain things that we haven't been able to implement as yet. But definitely get these books. They will help you on your journey. If you're lost, confused, don't know where you're going, read these books. If you're just looking for a good book on finance, read these books. They share so much, their stories, their downfalls, bad decisions they made, just everything, and the stories of the people that they help along the way. And I really value hearing from the public. I love hearing from people that did what you are preaching and it worked. That's the important part, right? We always want it to work. So definitely check these books out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. Yes. Oh, this book, I didn't say. This book gets a 5 out of 5 stars. Continue to follow me on this journey to this 100 book challenge. I appreciate you guys so much. Keep watching. See you in the comments if you've read these books, your thoughts on these books, what you agree, what you disagree. Thanks for watching. Toodles!